Welcome to the land of history. Quickly, let's proceed to the game of the day. Always support us in any way you can because your support means a lot to us in this journey. Native Americans' long path to U.S. citizenship and the right to vote. Although Native Americans were granted U.S. citizenship in 1924, the struggle for voting rights continued long after. Indigenous tribes in America had governed themselves independently well before the founding of the United States in 1776. Despite this, Native Americans endured centuries of hardship before being acknowledged as U.S. citizens and allowed to participate in voting. When the U.S. Constitution was ratified in 1788, Native Americans were excluded from citizenship and had to wait 136 years to obtain this status. Even after the 14th Amendment granted citizenship to Black Americans in 1868, Native peoples remained excluded from its protections. I am not yet ready to enact a sweeping naturalization law in which all Indian savages, wild or tame, connected to tribes, become my fellow citizens and vote alongside me, declared Michigan Senator Jacob Howard, according to the Native American Voting Rights Coalition. Some indigenous individuals chose not to become U.S. citizens, as they were members of sovereign nations of their own. Nonetheless, their lands and lives were subject to a government that did not recognize their citizenship. The Indian Citizenship Act, also called the Snyder Act, was signed by President Calvin Coolidge in 1924, granting Native Americans full citizenship. Many saw this law as a measure aimed at dismantling Native nations and forcing their assimilation into mainstream American culture, including efforts such as sending young indigenous people to boarding schools. Carlisle Boarding School's founder, Richard Henry Pratt, stated in 1892 that the purpose was to kill the Indian in him and save the man. Despite gaining citizenship, Native Americans were not guaranteed the right to vote by Congress. According to the Constitution, states governed voting rights, apart from the 15th and 19th Amendments, which were frequently ignored to deny black voters access. Numerous white Americans opposed Native people voting in their states. In the late 1930s, Henry Mitchell, a native canoe builder in Maine, recounted an official telling a Native individual, "We don't want your people over here. You have your elections on the island, so if you wish to vote, go there." Native Americans were forced to battle for voting rights on a state-by-state basis. Disenfranchisement, especially targeting those on reservations, persisted into the 1960s. In 1957, after a Native voter challenged a Utah law, the state repealed a statute that barred reservation residents from voting. In 1962, New Mexico's Supreme Court invalidated a challenge against the Navajo voting in the 1960 election. Despite these wins, Native voters still faced poll taxes, literacy tests, and intimidation, tactics also used to suppress black voters. The 1965 Voting Rights Act fortified voting protections nationwide. Native Americans had won the right to vote in every state. However, the Supreme Court's 2013 ruling in Shelby County v. Holder eliminated the Justice Department's power to block changes in voting laws within states with histories of discrimination. By 2019, a federal commission found that at least 23 states had introduced new restrictive voting laws. Thank you for watching and listening. Stay tuned on our next episode in 3 days' time.